The following is an exclusive presentation of Blaze Sports.
We welcome you to Tempe, Arizona for this episode of Blaze Gameday. I'm Alan Judson, joined alongside Sun Devil Athletics social media intern Olivia Prickett and Nathan Kettlehut. Arizona State volleyball has been on a tear this season. Just 3 losses to their name. 2 of those losses, Pitt and Texas, are in the top 4 of the latest AVCA poll. And the other loss, the most recent, Iowa State last Friday. They are not in the top 4, but they are in the top 25 and fighting in a very, very competitive Big 12 conference. Olivia, I'll start with you. Go back to the beginning of the season. That Penn State victory in specific felt like a huge swing for this squad. A lot of viewers on FS1. It felt like a huge push of momentum. Penn State team's kind of fallen off, but ASU has kept that momentum going.
Yeah, I mean, that game was electric. We went into it, we wanted it. We were playing in the State Farm Showcase, which had a bunch of great teams, including Pitt. We went in and we really wanted to fight, and getting that win against Penn State really just set the tone for the season, I think, for us. And I mean, given how Penn State is doing now, it's kind of, been pushed back into, like, not the limelight anymore. But I think how we are doing as a team, ASU volleyball, is just great. And we've really just set the tone for the season with that match, and how we are doing now just completely shows.
Yeah, the Nittany Lions now 13-9. They're 7-5 in Big Ten play. Still just barely in the top 25 of the rankings, but still a very strong team. And then, Nathan, you get into conference play. You open the conference season undefeated. You're 9-0 in your first 9 games. Go on the road to Iowa State, and ASU takes a loss. But I want to ask you about that BYU game that you were at. 5 sets, hard fought from beginning to end. The Smith Fieldhouse was rocking, but ASU, J.J. Van Niel still find a way to pull out a victory. What did you learn about the ASU team in that win?
Well, I think that Sun Devil team, it showed the fight they have in a game like that. You're down 2-1, your backs are against the wall, and you go and win sets 4 and 5 in thrilling fashion on the road, where it was an atmosphere that was something that the Sun Devils aren't used to, and what BYU brought to that game was incredible. Now for the upcoming game against them at home, it's a much different atmosphere, and I think the Sun Devils, it's a huge test for them early on in the season and early on in Big 12 play, and they end up passing that test with flying colors. Yeah,
and the most recent contest against Iowa State on Friday goes to 5 sets. ASU wins sets 1 and 4. The Cyclones win sets 2, 3, and 5. You talked about the resiliency against BYU. Couldn't get it done against the Cyclones, and that's in large part due to just massive struggles in terms of hitting. They hit under 190 in all 3 sets that ASU lost, including a set where they hit a flat 0, just as many errors as they had kills. Olivia, the struggles in that game were apparent, but what positives did you take out of that loss?
I mean, our hitting always was amazing. Noemi on the right side with 18 kills, just completely going ham. She really just outdoes it every single game. And then with Colby Neal in the middle, I think she had 15 blocks that night, just putting up impressive numbers. You don't see a middle like Colby Neal. And then to mention Ella Lamagora too. They're just powerhouses in the middle, and it's great to see. Bailey Miller, I feel like she struggled a little bit that game, but I mean, we still did a really good job offensively, and our setters ran an amazing offense too. Really not much to complain about with that game. There was a lot of positives, just we found ways to really get in our own heads.
And Nathan, I'll ask you a couple of the struggles. A long road trip for the last 5 games for ASU. We're on the road. That was the 4th game. How big of an impact do you think that was in Ames, and that kind of came to a halt against a very good Iowa State team with a lot of momentum going your way, and you just kind of fall flat in the later sets?
I think a part of it's a long road trip. The Sun Devils come back home for a little while after that long stretch on the road, and I think that can definitely take a toll on a team throughout the course of a season, and I think that kind of led to it. I feel like just there's so much energy put into the course of your season. When you're fighting through it that whole time, it's really tough to kind of battle in a game like that. And I think the Sun Devils, they showed a lot of flashes in that game, still showing why they're one of the best teams in the nation. They're still in the top 10. So I think it's just, you have to move on after a game like that and still take away the positives and forget about the negatives.
Yeah, ASU now ranked 8th in the latest AVCA poll. They dropped 2 spots. They were 6th entering the matchup against Iowa State. But the Devils now at home for the next 3 contests. They've got Texas Tech and BYU this week. U of A, a big Teacup showdown next week. All of those games will be on different Blaze Radio Online, blazeradioonline.com platforms. But this week, Texas Tech, full discretion, this is filmed on a Tuesday evening, so Texas Tech is happening tomorrow. They'll ask you about the Red Raiders coming in. What are the outlooks for that matchup?
I mean, the Red Raiders, they have a really good offense as well as a defense. They're a very even team when it comes to that. They have a lot to offer, but I feel like on our defensive side, we're going to be really strong covering, and we know how to handle teams like that. And I mean, offensively, we're going to do the same thing that we know how to do. With Noemi, I'm not going to doubt that she's going to go out, probably get around 20 kills against that block.
Yeah, she always finds a way to do something different. Arizona State, 11th in the nation in blocks per set. That front line has been dominant all season. We'll talk a little bit more about the next matchup in this week. Arizona State versus BYU. We'll preview the Cougars. We'll focus on a few different players more and more as we go throughout segment 2. Don't go anywhere here on Blaze Game Day. Welcome back to Blaze Game Day. Alan Judson, Olivia Prickett, and Nathan Kettlehunt. We're going to talk about some specific players who we like on this Arizona State team and what we like about them. So, Olivia, I'll start with you. The setters, Sydney Henry, Bryn Covell. How important are they to this offense, the way they facilitate, the way they work in the 5-2?
Oh, they're so important. They do a really, really great job at running their offense so effectively. The reason that Bailey Miller is so good and Tatum Parrott and the middles and Noemi is because of the setters. And they truly are the quarterbacks of this team. And being a former setter myself, I just have so much respect for them and just how consistent they are. They really, really, really stress accuracy. You can see it in-game and warm-ups and even in practice. So I'm a huge fan of the way they run their offense, and this Arizona State team wouldn't be the same without them.
And Nathan, Olivia brought up Noemi Glover. I want to ask you a little bit about her, the transfer from Oregon. How big has she been for this Arizona State team early on?
Oh, she's been huge for this team. Leads the team in kills per set and total kills on the team, even after missing a little bit of time as well. She's been so huge for Arizona State all season long, and I think that there's no way you can really have a replacement for Noemi Glover and the impact that she's made. I think that when you go against an Arizona State team like this, where there's so much you have to go and prepare against, you can't just prepare for Glover. You have to think about everybody. But the thing is, you do have to prepare for Glover for what she brings to the court.
Yeah, the swings that she brings are unbelievable. My go-to line is they'd get pulled over on a lot of roads here in Arizona. With the speed she puts behind them, her accuracy as well is one of the best things, I think, about Glover. She's so hard to block. She's so effective when she goes up. But going back to you, Olivia, you talked about how key these setters are on the court and how important they are for Glover, Parrott, Lamigora. How important are they off the court for the way that this team gels? They feel like they're more than just a team on the court. They feel like they're people who enjoy being around one another, who love spending time together. Yeah. How important are Sydney Henry and Bryn Covell towards that matter?
Well, they really just create connections every hitter that they have. Every girl that makes contact with the ball, they have a connection with. With Faith Frame in the back row, she knows exactly where to put that ball for Sydney and Bryn. They're running a really great 6-2, so it's super easy for Faith and whoever is in the back row, really, to get that ball to where they need it to be, especially because they're running from the right side and they're just coming up. And when they're in that movement, just the accuracy of the pass is so important. And then when they get up into that, little circle that they have up there, just their accuracy was setting Bailey and setting Noemi and going against the flow if the pass is pushed really far up and setting all the way back to Noemi and running those slides. They do that amazing. So just really creating that connection with their hitters, like you said, off the court. They're all best friends and they all know what each other like volleyball-wise and not. So it's just really special what they all have.
And Bailey Miller is somebody I want to focus on just a little bit. She feels, at least from my perspective, just looking down at the court and watching the way they play, she kind of feels like the heart and soul of this team, at least to me. From an outside perspective, she's one of the best on the service line for ASU. Her 28 aces leads the team. And she's very good defensively in terms of digs, mixes in a couple blocks every once in a while. And she's been really huge as of late as well. Double-digit kills in 6 consecutive games. Bailey Miller, at least, for the opportunities that I've had to watch this team, she feels like one of the biggest pieces, and number 22 always seems to be in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing. So I think J.J. Van Niel, the impact that he's had on her and just her ability to it feels like quarterback this team, along with Bryn Covell, along with Sydney Henry, as you mentioned, Olivia. She feels like a huge piece of this Arizona State team. And the big thing that I would say is the 6 on the court, everybody on the roster, they don't work without another. It kind of feels like huge importance for one of them to have the other and vice versa. And the same with Glover and Henry, as we talked about, Nathan, or just everybody seems to work so well in tandem. And I'll ask you one more time about Noemi Glover and just how important she is. Big 12 Offensive Player of the Week twice. She runs, the offense is run through Glover, it feels like. And the Oregon transfer, how big she's been for Arizona State. And down the stretch, as we continue to move, not a Big 12 tournament, but this team's hoping to host an NCAA regional for the second straight year. How big will Glover have to be, along with each integral part with Covell and Henry and Miller, everybody across the board just stepping up the rest of the season?
Yeah, it's not just Noemi Glover from Oregon. It's also Colby Neal, who's been incredible in the front row as that middle and that force, just dominating with the blocks especially. And she really can place the volleyball anywhere that she wants to as well. And I think she's been huge for this team. But going back to Noemi Glover, the improvements and strides she's made from Oregon here to Arizona State has been absolutely incredible. Her hitting percentage has gone up by over 10. Her kills per set has gone up by 2 since last season going into Arizona State. So the strides that she's made with J.J. Van Niel at the helm and her teammates around her, talking about the two-setter system that Arizona State runs in that 6-2, has been huge for her, and the improvements that she's made over the last coming years has been huge for ASU. And I think that they're continuing to be a force in the Big 12, and they're not going away anytime soon.
Yeah, and also important to note, this is basically a very brand new team from last season's NCAA regional team. They brought in a ton of new pieces. You lose a lot of pieces to professional volleyball, the graduation, every way they kind of went with it. It's a very new team, and most of the players who are on the court did not play on the team last season, were not a part of Arizona State. So one last question for you, Olivia, before we'll head to break. How have you seen these players advance from game one now to the later stages of the season in their ability to work together and their ability to play under J.J. Van Niel and his scheme?
One word: trust. You start the season with a whole new roster, starting 6. And when you lose a whole starting lineup, it's like starting back at square one. And so from watching these girls in the spring with their exhibition games against GCU and U of A, there was the lack of trust there. But over the course of the summer and, before we got into conference play, just trust has been one thing, and just where they are on the court at all times, with Faith in the back row, Bailey in the back row, Bryn and Sydney coming up to set, and then the offense kind of speaks for itself. Just knowing where the ball needs to be at all times and knowing where each player is at all times. It's really just trust that's really grown throughout the season.
Yeah. And then, Nathan, one last question for you before we head to break. One person who we haven't really talked about yet, and we need to, is J.J. Van Niel. Back-to-back Coach of the Year, one time in the Pac-12, one time in the Big 12. He lost his first conference game last week since 2024. His second conference game since 2024. Only the second time ASU's lost to a Big 12 team in the Big 12. How big has the Mustache Man been for what he brings to this team as a coach, as a person, and allowing the trust that Olivia talks about to kind of work itself in?
I mean, J.J. Van Niel, he's brought magic on and off the court to this Arizona State team. I think he's revamped the culture of ASU volleyball. He's brought people to their seats. He's brought people into the crowd. He's brought new players in. He's brought the players that were in the system already and let them grow. I think that the Sun Devils wouldn't be the same team they are today in the last couple of years without J.J. Van Niel and coming in and kind of taking that step forward and kind of providing that leadership role to ASU. And I think the results speak for themselves with back-to-back seasons, being Coach of the Year in the Pac-12 and Big 12, like you mentioned. I think that's the reason why the Sun Devils have been so strong is because of the Mustache Man.
And we'll talk about another fantastic coach on the other side of the break. Heather Olmstead and the Cougars coming in to Tempe, although Olmstead never beaten ASU in her career. We'll preview the Cougars on the other side of the break. You're watching and listening to Blaze Game Day.
It's the third year in a row that Ethan's gotten me the same set of pencils. I really don't even know, what he's thinking. Maybe he thinks I collect them or something.
Well, he's gotten me a notebook for 2 years. I take my notes on my computer.
Well, you did tell him you like the movie The Notebook.
That's a little out of context, don't you think? Ugh. Parker, You okay?
Yeah. I'm fine. Oh, hey, what time is it?
It's 9:24.
Oh, that's not too bad. It's 4 hours. I usually sleep better on the weekends anyways.
The weekends?
Parker, it's Thursday.
Oh, shoot. Sorry, I'm late, you guys.
Oh.
Is he gonna be okay?
I think so. We probably should have asked him what month it was, though. Last time I caught him Christmas shopping, and it was February.
We welcome you back to Blaze Game Day. Alan Judson, Olivia Prickett, Nathan Kettlehut here to preview the game of the week, Arizona State versus BYU, the volleyball matchup, a big Big 12 matchup. ASU has fallen now to second in the Big 12 standings, although Colorado, the team above them, still got a gauntlet left to go, as does every team in this Big 12 conference. And that's because every team in this Big 12 conference is very, very good, including the BYU Cougars. You might look at their record, 18-5 overall, 12-0 in non-conference play, and they're just above 500 at 6-5 in Big 12 play. Every team in this conference from top to bottom is so good. A lot of teams are ranked, and a lot of teams have a number next to their name, including this BYU team that plays Arizona tomorrow and then plays the Devils. So they've got a little bit of a road trip here in the Valley of the Sun. But Olivia, the leader of this BYU team, Alex Bauer, 11th in the nation in assists per set. How key is she to BYU and their hope for victory on Friday?
She's really the only setter that BYU has that is really reliable. She does a really good job, like I said, with Brennan Sidney, running this offense. She has 900 assists on the season, which is super impressive. You don't see that very often. First in the Big 12, I think, like you mentioned. She just does a really good job at effectively running her offense. I mean, she really relies on the pins, the right sides and the outsides, but whatever gets the job done, and she does a really good job.
Yeah, Nathan, talking about those attackers, Claire Little-Chambers, Suli Davis, how big are they for making Alex Bauer look good, but also just scoring points and pushing this BYU team to wins?
Yeah, the two outsides have been huge for BYU this season, especially specifically Suli Davis. In a game where Claire Little-Chambers struggled with hitting errors, or hitting percentage was way down compared to her season average, it was Suli Davis who stepped up. 25 kills, second highest in her career, just a freshman for the Cougars. She could have a major impact on that team going forward year to year. And also for both of them, the big thing for this offense is getting them going in both senses, in both sides, with whether it's in the back row, whether it's in the front row attacking. Both of those girls just need to get rolling early on, and once they do, it's really hard to stop this BYU squad.
Yeah, Suli Davis leads BYU with 4.35 kills per set. Claire Little-Chambers right behind her with 3.75. But we talked about J.J. Van Niel towards the end of that last segment. Now Heather Olmstead, two very comparable coaches in terms of success. This BYU team, a frequent flyer in the NCAA tournament. They've hosted regionals themselves, but Olmstead has never beaten the Devils in her career, and that includes a loss in the NCAA tournament. Olivia, what needs to happen for that to change this Friday?
I mean, they just need to play like how they played when we went to Provo. They played super scary. Like, I'm not gonna lie, they were just so consistent, and you really have to owe that to head coach Heather Olmstead. She really just drives her girls to keep going. And whether they lost a set, won a set, she had the mindset of let's just keep being consistent, and she does a really good job at that, and that's a reason why she's had a lot of success in the last few seasons with the Cougars.
Yeah, that matchup in Provo went to 5 sets, and it was down to the wire in every single set. Yeah. A fantastic volleyball game, but maybe a heart attack for a lot of Arizona State fans, and a glimmer of hope for BYU fans as we talked about their struggles in the Big 12. But Nathan, a coaching matchup like this we saw before the game in Provo, Olmstead and Van Niel, a ton of respect for one another. How big do the two head coaches become late in these games when maybe like it did in Provo, it comes down to a 14-13 match point in set number 5?
That's kind of the difference between Heather Olmstead and J.J. Van Niel. Heather Olmstead has over 250 wins with BYU. She's been there for about a decade. It's been incredible what she's been able to build in this Cougars program. Not saying J.J. Van Niel hasn't done an incredible job early on with this Arizona State team, but that's what Heather Olmstead has, is she has the long-term success built over time, and what she's done with this Cougars program has been incredible. And I think what she brings as a leader is very similar to what J.J. Van Niel brings to Arizona State, just super strong and a loud voice to kind of direct the team year to year, because that's the thing about college volleyball. You never really can run back that same team over and over. There's going to be new faces, and one familiar face for BYU has been Olmstead.
And then the last thing I'll ask you guys about is the service line for BYU. They're one of the best teams in the Big 12 when it comes to the service line in terms of not making mistakes. 147 service aces, only 182 service errors. So they keep it pretty clean throughout the entire matchup, but maybe not as aggressive as a team like Arizona State. Olivia, do you see that as a help or a hindrance when you're playing a team like ASU who tries to attack on the back line?
On the service line, it's really, the most important part. Whether you get an ace or you just get the ball in, that's really all that matters. And with Arizona State, their ability to, get a dig on that ball and able to set it and, potentially have a kill, which is majority of the time, it's really scary for the Cougars, and they do a really good job at just getting the ball in. So that's their thing, is they have to just do a good job at returning it.
Yeah, and Nathan, this feels like a must-win for BYU. Arizona State, if they want to win back-to-back Big 12 championships, this could be a must-win for the Devils. Going down the stretch late in games, is there a side you trust more?
I think that it kind of depends on what's going on in the game. What's going on. If it's a set 5, I feel like you have to trust the Sun Devils for how well they've played in those sets on the stretch. They have experience against this BYU team in a set 5 situation. That was on the road. Sun Devils have this match at home this time. I think that would give them the edge, but both teams so strong, both ranked in the top 25 for a reason. But BYU, conference play has been a little bit of an issue, 6-5 in that stretch. I think that if they can get a win here on the road, that to end off this Arizona road trip, it would be huge for them. But I think it's really going to be the Sun Devils who have that edge in the late game.
Just one loss in 5 sets in the last 2 seasons for J.J. Van Niel. That came on Friday against Iowa State. Kenny Dillingham's squad and the Arizona State football team, they took home a victory in Ames on Saturday. We'll talk about that, preview the bye week and the upcoming matchup against West Virginia. On the other side of the break here, you're watching Blaze Gameday. We welcome you back to Blaze Game Day here in Studio 2 in Tempe, Arizona. Alan Judson, Olivia Prickett, Nathan Kettlehut here to talk a little bit about some Arizona State football. Went to Iowa State this last weekend and took down a gritty victory against the Iowa State team. And the story of the week after that ball game was Jeff Sims. Nathan, what'd you make of his performance on Saturday?
I think that people have very much overshined his good parts of that game. There was a lot of good, but there also was a lot of bad. We'll talk about a little bit of both. I'll start with kind of the bad. 3 turnovers is never a formula for success, but when you run for over 200 yards and have an 88-yard rushing touchdown as a quarterback and have one of the best games in Arizona State football history as a quarterback in the run game, I don't think it's going to be unlikely to see a team come out and win a game like they just did. So I think that for Arizona State, I think Jeff Sims, the offense, has to be built around his legs. That's what it was against Iowa State. If they can do that continuing going forward, he'll continue to have success. But the arm is an issue. The fumble problems were an issue as well against Iowa State.
Yeah, of importance as well, Sam Levitt is out for the rest of the season. So it's Jeff Sims, and for the near future, he's not going to have future first-round pick Jordan Tyson in the offense with him, expected to be out until at least the game in Colorado. That's 2 weeks from now. But Olivia, going back to Jeff Sims just a little bit, I know you didn't have a chance to watch the game, but the narrative around Sims exiting the game was much different than it was going into the game. How did you see that as someone who didn't watch the game and just kind of feeling the stark difference of, oh, Jeff Sims is bad, and oh, Jeff Sims just had a fantastic game?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of people really doubted Jeff Sims going into this game, just given how good Sam Levitt has been for this Sun Devil offense. Him winning AP National Player of the Week was amazing for him, and he has his jersey in the Sun Devil Athletics Hall of Fame, and that's pretty cool. As someone who doesn't watch football all the time, I think he did a great job. And he really did. I feel like he really went out and just gave it his all, and you really just have to credit that. And, with him celebrating with his family, after the game in his post-game interview, and just, he's been through 3 different teams. He's really gone through it, but I feel like, his performance this game, he did a really good job, and I think as someone who doesn't personally watch football a lot, it's cool to see.
Yeah, Jeff Sims was a huge factor in that ball game. We'll see a lot more of Jeff Sims, but we won't see a whole lot of Arizona State football this week. Kenny Dillingham said in a press conference that he's going to give his team the week off. Some people are speculating that maybe he's going for some job interviews. I'll throw a curveball of a question at you, Nathan. What speculation, what do you make of Kenny Dillingham and giving his team the week off? Is it just to rest them? They've had a lot of injuries, or is he taking a private jet to Auburn?
I think that's a very, very targeted question, because I think you know my opinion on the topic. I think that this week is for the players. 99% of that is for the players. It's been a grueling season for Arizona State. Injuries have plagued the team on both sides of the ball. It's been a big impact for ASU overall in the football program, with Levitt and Tyson being the headliners, but the defense has seen so many injuries as well. They finally got a little bit more healthy against Iowa State. It was a big impact in that game. But going forward, I think that giving those guys this week of rest before West Virginia and then Colorado and then U of A to wrap up the season, you have to win those games if you want any chance to fight for that Big 12 championship berth. And again, a lot needs to go your way still, but I think that it's a big week that Dillingham gave off to the players, and I think speculating the job stuff for him, if he's trying to hear out other options, I feel like it's a tough question to think about for Dillingham for how much he's brought to this Arizona State program, how he started his college career at Arizona State. He's from Phoenix. I think there's so much in Arizona for him, and if he's looking elsewhere, good for him.
Yeah, the SEC has 4 job openings right now. One of them, Kenny Dillingham's alma mater, kind of, as when he was an offensive coordinator at Auburn with Bo Nix. But you talked about that defense a little bit. We'll go back to the play on the field last Saturday. You talk about the defense a little bit. How big were they in the victory, the numbers that they put up to have Arizona State beat Iowa State on the road in rain and all the chaos that game was?
I mean, the front 7 has been so incredible for Arizona State this season. They were a huge factor against Iowa State this past weekend in that game as well. I think that having a defense that's 3rd in the Big 12 in sacks when you've had so many issues with the injuries like we've talked about on that side of the ball, and just their ability to step up on 3rd down was huge. 2 for 14. That's what Iowa State was on 3rd down conversions in that game. I think without having that defense behind Jeff Sims, you wonder if the play calling changes a little bit without only allowing those 16 points and having that impact on that side of the ball. It's going to be 19 points in that regard. But I think that it was huge for Arizona State to have that behind it. It was huge for Jeff Sims to have that defense behind him. And throughout the course of the season, when the defense plays well, it's good results for Arizona State.
And Olivia, I'll ask you this. Down the stretch with the 3 games remaining, Colorado, Arizona, and West Virginia, not in that order, but those 3 games left, how important is this defense for the rest of the season and the way that they've played in the first 9 games?
It's so important. You got to stop that offense from, getting down the line. And I think our defense does a really good job. Obviously, there's going to be off nights and there's going to be on nights. Like against Utah, that was, a night where I feel like the whole team was kind of jumbled. But it really came together against Iowa State, and I think that they did a really good job at stopping the ball.
Yeah, those 3 teams left. Bye week this week, West Virginia, Colorado on the road, and then the University of Arizona in a Teacup showdown. ASU really needs to win every game the rest of the way, and as you mentioned, have a few dominoes fall their way if they want to go to back-to-back Big 12 championship berths. And one team that did not have a lot of success last year, 2 teams that didn't have a lot of success last year, men's and women's hoops for Arizona State. The Molly Miller era already 1-0, and the 11th season of Bobby Hurley currently underway just down the street at Desert Financial Arena. We'll talk about men's hoops. We'll talk about women's hoops on the other side of the break. You're watching Blaze Game Day.
But it's the 3rd year in a row that Ethan's gotten me the same set of pencils. I really don't even know, what he's thinking. Maybe he thinks I collect them or something.
Well, he's gotten me a notebook for 2 years. I take my notes on my computer.
Well, you did tell him you like the movie The Notebook.
That's a little out of context, don't you think? Parker, you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. Oh, hey, what time is it?
It's 9:24.
Oh, that's not too bad. It's 4 hours. I usually sleep better on the weekends anyways.
The weekends?
Parker, it's Thursday.
Oh, shoot. Sorry, I'm late, you guys.
should have asked him what month it was, though. Last time I caught him Christmas shopping, and it was February.
We welcome you back to Blaze Game Day, and it's time to talk a little bit of hoops. Arizona State men's and women's basketball feel like they're in completely different eras right now. Molly Miller in the first year of her deal, Bobby Hurley in the 11th of his. The women's team 1-0 after a victory against Coppin State last night. Olivia, what do you make of this new era?
I mean, I think this is going to be their breakthrough season. They look like a pretty solid team. And I'm just excited. They have a lot of hype coming around them, with Molly Miller being in her first season at ASU, coming from GCU, crosstown rivals. And it's her 24th consecutive home game, dating back to her new era. So I'm super excited to see how this team does.
Yeah, Molly Miller was a winner at GCU. She won a whole lot of games, not a ton of success in the tournament, but you don't find a lot of success in the tournament for those WAC teams and for those lower level teams. So those regular season wins were huge for Molly Miller, and I know that the athletics department, the fans, the players are hoping that Molly Miller can bring some of her success to the women's basketball scene. Just similar to the volleyball team that we were mentioning earlier, it's a completely new team. There are a lot of new players, not a lot of returners for Arizona State. So it's going to be Molly Miller bringing in her system the same way that J.J. Van Niel has brought in his system. It's going to be very, very different. But Nathan, last night felt different as well. Natasha Adair, her line all of last year was, we played 38 minutes. We played 36 minutes of basketball. For Molly Miller, it feels like her team played 40 minutes of basketball last night.
Yeah, they definitely did. It was a one-possession game with about 5 minutes left to go in that contest, and it was the defense that really stepped up for Arizona State, and some explosive offensive plays as well. But for a team that 19 steals, one of their best marks in recent history for this Arizona State women's basketball program, they've been flying around the court, and I think that's a big thing that Molly Miller has brought to Tempe, is building that different system offensively and defensively is a huge change compared to what Natasha Adair had at Arizona State. So I think that for everyone who are truthers about this Arizona State women's basketball program, I think it's hard to make a leap in your first season in a new place, but I think that this is a good start point for Arizona State and Molly Miller's tenure here at Arizona State.
Like it is across the board, women's basketball stacked in the Big 12. A lot of talent from top to bottom. The Devils stay at DFA to face off against Eastern Washington. 2-game road trip to California to play at San Diego, at Santa Clara. We'll have coverage of all of those games on Blaze Radio, BlazeRadioOnline.com, Blaze Radio Mixler, and Blaze Sports Mixler all across the Blaze universe. But a game that's going on right now is Arizona State men's basketball. Bobby Hurley in his 11th season. This is a squad that feels much different compared to Molly Miller's team. Olivia, going into this season, really difficult schedule, and Bobby Hurley may be on his last legs.
Yeah, I mean, he has the 22nd hardest schedule in college basketball, and, it's really in the air if this is his final year with the Sun Devils coaching this basketball team. So it'll be interesting to see what he does with potentially his last year coaching this team, or see if he could do something super great and, really prove, fans and, speculators wrong.
Yeah, just as we've talked about with this 2025 volleyball team, the 2025 women's basketball team, a completely new team here for Bobby Hurley. One returning scholarship player, and that's Trevor Best. I know you're a big fan, but a completely new team across the board. A lot of international prospects, a few transfers, a big transfer from Pepperdine. But what do you make of this team and their preseason expectations being so low?
I think that there's nowhere to go but up for this Arizona State team. One of the lowest picked teams, last in the Big 12 media poll for what they're going to do this season. I think that Bobby Hurley has heard the noise surrounding where he's at in this Arizona State program, but their overall team looks like this coming year, and I think it's just time to prove the haters wrong. You've got a lot to do in order to do that in one of the toughest basketball conferences across the nation. But I think that for ASU, a guy like Trevor Best could see some more minutes as the year goes around. I think that the early part of the season will be good for Arizona State to start gelling together, trying to find their rhythm. But I think going from there, you need to start finding something in conference play because you know how tough that will get in a Big 12 atmosphere.
Yeah, at the moment, currently only 2 ranked teams on the docket in non-con play. They've got Gonzaga and UCLA. One at home in Gonzaga, one on the road at UCLA. So this non-conference slate going from top to bottom, the Maui Invitational mixed in there, currently playing Southern Utah, winning by about 15 or so. Utah Tech on the docket. How important are these first 11 or 12 games before heading in to that tough Big 12 schedule that you talk about?
Again, it's a huge moment for a team to gel together, to find themselves as an overall unit, for Bobby Hurley to kind of establish himself with almost an entirely brand new group of guys. And I think that these first few games, especially before you get into even those tougher out-of-conference teams like the Gonzagas and the UCLAs of the world, is being able to find your rhythm is super important early on. Find your identity as a team. Are you going to be an inside team? Use the big buys. Are you going to be an outside team? Shooting the three may not be at the highest rate you would want, but the more shots you put up, the more likely they are to fall. So being able to find that identity early on in a season will be huge for Bobby Hurley and this Arizona State men's basketball team.
Yeah, some impressive showings in exhibition play, a loss to UC Irvine, but a couple players were the standouts against Texas A&M. Pig Johnson had a big game against the Aggies. So expectations really everywhere across the board for this Arizona State men's basketball team. A lot of people expecting surprises and expecting a better season than maybe others. But again, as you mentioned, that may just because you can't really go anywhere but up with this Bobby Hurley squad. And on the other side of our final break, we'll have our expectations specifically for the Blaze Radio game of the week. Arizona State versus BYU on Friday evening. We'll give our picks on the other side. You're watching Blaze Game Day. And we welcome you back to the final segment of Blaze Game Day. Alan Judson, Olivia Prickett, Nathan Kettlehut previewing our game of the week. Arizona State versus BYU volleyball. The game on Blaze Radio ASU on X, BlazeRadioOnline.com, 7 p.m. Arizona time this Friday, where the 8th-ranked Arizona State Sun Devils and the 21st-ranked BYU Cougars face off. Olivia, we'll start with you. Your pick.
I'm going 4 sets. And BYU is going to win the second set, and ASU is going to take the rest. That's my pick.
Yeah, Arizona State and BYU, the Cougars already beaten the 10th ranked at the time team in the nation, TCU. But Nathan, we'll send it to you.
Yeah, they took a tough loss to UCF. That kind of killed a little bit of their momentum. But going forward, I think the Sun Devils bounce back in a big way. I think this will be 3 sets, and I think the Sun Devils will take a big win home and complete the season series sweep of BYU in a match that was a thriller in BYU's territory in Provo. I think it's going to be the opposite here in Tempe.
Yeah, Arizona State and BYU, the Sun Devils team we've talked about, so good from top to bottom. This BYU team as well. Both teams very well coached. It's a very even matchup on paper, but I think the way that BYU has played, the way that the Devils have stayed consistent compared to the way that BYU has been back and forth all season. That 6-5 Big 12 conference record really scares me. I think the Sun Devils should be worried with the Cougars coming into Tempe, but I have Arizona State with a sweep at home. Heather Olmstead has not been able to figure out J.J. Van Niel and this Arizona State team, and the Devils have been so good all year that one loss to a very good Iowa State team on the road, your 4th road game in 5 games, does not worry me. Get to be back at home, get to play in front of the home crowd. I've got Arizona State in a sweep. Devils and Cougars, 7 p.m. on Friday on Blaze Radio ASU on X, BlazeRadioOnline.com. Nathan Kettlehut and Parker Perrell will have the call for you. But for us, myself, Olivia Prickett, Nathan Kettlehut, that is all we have for you from Studio 2 here in Tempe, saying good night and so long here on Blaze Game Day.